Hey guys, welcome back to Sculptable. In today's video, we're going to be taking a request for a video, but before that, we need to talk about subscribers because only 98% of you guys are subscribed to the channel. So let's fix that by hitting that bell and subscribing down below so you know whenever we upload new content on the channel. And we're doing a request from a subscriber called RATCHET2045 thinking I should sculpt, funny enough, Ratchet. And I thought that was quite a cool idea. So I did. And today's video, I'm going to be showing you the entire process from concept to sculpting and the final render preview. I hope you like it. And without further ado, let's begin. So firstly, we start off in the blockout stage of our character, just using some Z-spheres and other primitives like the IMM tool brush set to create the hands and basic limbs of the character. Not going into detail, but just dynameshing things together and then Z-remeshing to get it so that we have a basic proportional look for the character so that we can move in and add details at a later stage. But as you can see here, I'm just adding everything together using some basic Z-spheres for the ears and changing the scale of them, and just using the move brush to kind of cut away with the damn standard and trim dynamic brush, as well as the inflate brush and clay strips brush to kind of get a basic look for the character. And we're kind of in the ugly stage for now, as you can see, but we kind of just want to sculpt away at this guy, adding in some basic eyes and facial features so that we know where to sculpt. I always find it helpful to add in the eyes for the eye sockets so you kind of know where you're going. But as you can see here, I'm just basically refining out the chiseled bony landmarks of the character because it's quite a stylized expression I'm going for, and it kind of ends up looking a bit like a mouse for a bit of the sculpt, but never mind. We're just continuing going here with the refinement of the face, which is what I stayed on for the most, moving those ears around before dynameshing them later on, just using the clay tubes and the trim dynamic brushes and trim adaptive brushes, just trying to carve that in, and then dynameshing using the other brushes like the inflate brush for the cheeks, clay strips and clay tubes for the bony landmarks of the face. I'm really just using the pinch brush to refine that all together and get that stylized look. The damn standard for the details, and as you can see, it's come together a bit more now, adding a bit of the cheeks, using the move brush to kind of refine that with the pinch brush to make the lips of the character, and also just making sure you're thinking in 3 dimensions when sculpting a face is very important, as I'm doing here, trying to create a stylized look for Ratchet. And also turning off symmetry here to make an asymmetrical expression for the character, so I'm trying to recreate a scene from the game. And then we're just using some paint for the eyes. It's very simple, just using about 10% strength on this here, and going in and just painting in some basic details and then copying that over, duplicating it to the other side of the character, and adding some basic fill color for the mesh. And I go on to this stage here, which is the hat of the character. I don't know, is it a cap or a hat? I'm not entirely sure, someone can correct it in the comments down below, but here we go, and adding that in, refining a bit more of the head shape and just trying to get that to curve around the ear, which is a challenge, but I managed to kind of get it to work, I think, in the end. Basically just going and carving that in, adding some details before having to dynamesh in the belt buckles and loops on this hat here. But that is something that comes in later. After all, I'm just adding in some basic details for this. It's basically just a few little straps and some cutouts in the thing itself, which isn't too difficult to do. Just using that trim dynamic brush and the dam standard to really just carve into that area, and then adding some polypaint onto the character for the colors of the fur, I guess you'd say, for this guy here. And obviously, I know what you're going to say in the comments, Ratchet needs fur. And that's something that happens later on in the video for the final render, but right now it's just adding the polypaint, because what you can do is you can use this thing called fiber mesh, and you can take the vertex colors or polypaint and then use that as the color for the fur of your character or the hair, which is something very cool. So that's what we do later on. But as you can see, I'm just adding color to the face, focusing more on this with the dam standard and clay tubes brushes to carve out certain areas and trying to get that asymmetrical look of Ratchet in a stylized way. And obviously it refines more over time, but now we're moving, after the face is looking okay for now, we move on to the body and changing a bit of the expression. Going in here and really just refining a bit of the look, making everything a bit more asymmetrical, which is always a difficult but fun task. And then we move on to the body. After dynameshing everything together, we're just using the smooth brush and clay tubes brushes, as well as the move brush, to refine the look of the torso and the musculature of this character, because bearing in mind he's a stylized character and we're kind of working in the realm of not being human, so we kind of have to take that into our looking around for inspiration on how to sculpt the guy. And then moving on a bit later into the sculpt, I add in more details of the character, such as his armor, his trousers, his gloves, and this is just really to move on a bit to show how it was looking after a while, because the initial blockout stage takes a while, but this is the fun part where we get to move into the detail and the stylization. Now you may be wondering how I managed to create the curves for the belt buckles and straps and such of the character. That's just using Zbrush's inbuilt IMM tool brush bag, which you can find in the menu. But here I'm adding some material settings for the character. I ended up going with the skin shader for the stylized characters at the moment, because that kind of gives a nice waxy kind of look. And then obviously adding metallic shaders for different aspects of the character, adding in the belt buckles and loops and all the individual sections, which is something that was quite fun. Going in here and just adding that into place and carving it in was fun, just using the move brush and dynamic topology really here, just to carve in and add details, going through the settings, changing things, masking stuff out. It's a long process, but it's a ton of fun, and really it's probably the most rewarding part of sculpting characters in ZBrush, because this is when you get to add details and really move into the character and make them their own, which is great. It's my favorite part, and I think you can see why it's so rewarding when you add those tiny details that really bring the characters to life. You really do feel a creative burst and a sense of accomplishment for your characters here. But yeah, I've just slowed down the video a bit so you guys can see a bit more of the real-time process of the video. It's not too long, but this is just showing how you add some wrinkles and folds into trouser legs just using the standard brush and a really low strand. Just going in there with your pen and just kind of like carving in a bit where the folds would be of the character. As you can see, it's not, you don't need to be too detailed because they're folds after all, but yeah, it's just small little details. I stayed away from the gloves because it's just the top view perspective of a screenshot, so you don't really see much of the character, so that wasn't really a priority. But yeah, moving on to just material settings, I just copied that primitive across to add the strap buckle on top of his torso. Just going in here and adding that in. I'm going to then add a duplicate of that mesh there underneath and carve away the first mesh to create a underlying shape, which I can use to then add a coloured object that adds for the kind of blue glowy medallion, I guess, he has on his chest. I'm not entirely sure what that is. Maybe someone can let me know down below. But yeah, moving on from that, it's basically just carving that in, adding on symmetry, and as you can see, it works quite well. You just go in and you carve that individual section, so then you get a nice glowy effect using the different metallic shaders, which is quite a lot of fun, honestly. And yeah, I'm just messing around with material settings here, going in, changing, and then skin shader 4 really works the best for most, but in terms of shoulder pads and such, I kind of go for a glossy plastic look because that seems to be what he has in the game itself, but I could be wrong. But this is just really the stage where you're just kind of feeling around what the character is supposed to be and just making some refinement, which is honestly the most fun stage, and it looks quite good once you've got the eyes in and the body and you're just trying to refine the details. Obviously here I'm just trying to figure out which bit sculpts the best before going in and adding the details in of this belt buckle here. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's not going to be shown that much on camera. And the cool thing about ZBrush is this is quite a dense model at the moment, but this is just the high topology version of it. If you want to take this into a game or an animation, you'd need to do a retopology of the entire mesh to make it much lower for animation and such, because you can handle that on a basic computer or animation machine because it would be too taxing on the system. So this is just the sculpted version of it. Can't really use this for much else than just showing, but yeah, I'm going on to the boots here, just making sure that I can sculpt in here. But the good thing about ZBrush is once you're done, you can dynamesh and then Z-remesh things to reduce the polygon count, which is honestly the best feature of the software, and I like it a lot. Because I originally came from using Blender most of the time for sculpting, and it didn't have all these great features for just sculpting in small details. And as you can see here, I'm just adding in more details to the shoe, which I didn't actually need to do, but I kind of got in the the trance of just enjoying the general sculpting and character design experience. So I just went in here and added the soles of the character. I did want to add some small details about it being a Lombax, but I'm not that advanced in ZBrush yet, so I wasn't able to add those. But I was going to add some little details to the shoe, but I suppose it's not that necessary because it's a stylized character, not fully realistic for the game anyway. So I'm just adding in details with the standard and damp standard brushes here, just to carve in some details and just make it look a bit more like shoes. And then taking this sphere here for the cylinder to add those little glowing areas of his boots. I think that's just a stylization choice. I don't know what they are, but they're kind of these little glowy sections that kind of have a blue ringlet in the middle, kind of thing that I'm kind of creating a bit like an arc reactor, I guess you could say, in terms of look. And then move on to using the Dynamesh feature in ZBrush to reduce the polygon counts of the character and kind of meshing everything together of the model. I'm kind of going in here because for the actual model itself, I'm going to create a separate version of the character, which is just this T-posing of Ratchet, and then the other one, which would be when I put everything together, will be the posed version for the final render, which I'll add fur and stuff to. But for this, it's just the basic colours and such of the character. As you can see here, I'm just going in for refinement at this stage because we're kind of nearing the end of this basic stylization of the character here. I've added some belt buckles and loops and things and sort of those bits of the straps coming down, but just refining the face a bit more because I noticed it wasn't quite looking quite good in terms of it being 3D enough for the character here. And just going in, tweaking the nose, the eyes, the shape and the colorization of things, kind of adding a bit of more of a reddish orangish hue to something because I want the fur to kind of stand out in that way. Just going in there, adding those small little finishing touches, and then kind of like remeshing the hat and kind of re-adding the high resolution textures and stuff to it, kind of because it was already baked in and kind of removed at that stage. But going back in and just refining it's quite good, and kind of keeping the straps a different color I thought worked quite well for the stylization. It looked quite cool, honestly. And yeah, just working on things, remeshing stuff together, going in and then painting the fur texture onto the arms using just the paint function in ZBrush. Just going in and adding that, and it's a bit low resolution here because I'm just going to add fur on top of it, so it wasn't that vital to have here. Just going in and adding some basic colours here. It's not too fancy, just going in and painting it all together, and it just turns out to just look quite cool at the end once it's all added together. But yeah, this is just really the finishing steps of the model before I go in and add Clank onto his back. And with moving on to Clank here, I'm just taking some basic primitives here, adding a chrome bright colour to it because that works quite well for Clank, I think, from the Rift Apart teasers and trailers and gameplay showcase. So I worked in that, and yeah, for Clank it was kind of a simplistic look I was going for because he's just going to be on the back of Ratchet for this little showcase. For this bit it looks a little bit strange until I kind of make the final render where he's got the correct angle and stuff on it, but I'm not going into a full body of him. I'm just trying to show the sections that will be on camera for the render. So I'm just going in here and like carving in some basic stuff for him, kind of stylizing him a bit more. You know, it's a kind of give and take process where you're just trying to make the character look decent for the final render. And now, after all the work is said and done, we reach the final stages of the character here, where we're just going to pose everything together and kind of just work on the final look for the character. And here, as you can see, it wouldn't work unless I created a new version of the character and just call it Ratchet Pose, for example here, where I'm just meshing everything together to turn around and keep the material settings the same. But I could have rigged this character, but just to save time I decided to create a separate version of him and just mesh everything together. I can just change the look of all the characters here, just clicking the merge function in ZBrush here relentlessly over and over again, just to merge everything together and kind of pose Ratchet a bit more. Clank's kind of just in the same position because he's Clank. And without further ado, we see the final character. First here without fur, and then the next with fur. Let me know which render you prefer in the comments down below. But yeah, that reaches the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching, especially big thanks to RATCHET2045 who commented down below to make this video a reality. So yeah, subscribe guys on this video, help me make more great videos like this real soon, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks, you've been great.